The first time I realized I might actually end up in a full-blown suburban war, it wasn't when I got my first HOA warning. It wasn't when I caught someone peeking through my kitchen window. It was when a grown woman in a crisp white pantsuit stepped into my backyard uninvited during my wife's birthday song like she was the damn FBI, and then had the nerve to critique the cake. Yeah. Maple Ridge Estates, ladies and gentlemen. White fences, trimmed lawns, friendly little waves at the mailbox. And one HOA enforcer named Karen Parkman who treated my yard like it was her personal reality show. I moved in thinking I'd found this perfect slice of calm new shutters, freshly power-washed driveways, lawns cut so clean they looked like they came with a warranty. The whole neighborhood smelled faintly like paint and fertilizer, like somebody was trying way too hard to convince you nothing bad ever happens here. And that should have been my first clue, because where there's an HOA, there's always somebody who mistakes community standards for absolute power. And in Maple Ridge, that somebody was Karen. Karen had this presence that could sour milk, like she walked around carrying a cloud of disapproval just for fun. Always with lipstick that never smudged a clipboard like it was an extension of her arm, and this suspicious squint that made you feel guilty, even if you were just breathing. On paper, she was on the board. In real life, she acted like she was the final boss of suburbia Maple Ridge's self-appointed guardian against the horrors of a recycling bin slightly too far from the curb. I'm not exaggerating, by the way. My recycling bin sat maybe 6 inches past the curb one time. And within 24 hours, I got a neatly typed letter, bin misplacement first warning, like I'd committed a felony. Then I planted lavender. Just lavender because I like the way it smells and I like watching bees do their little jobs, and I get a note taped to my mailbox complaining about my offensive purple flowers. Offensive like my lavender had walked into the neighborhood and yelled a slur. At first I tried to be nice because I was new and I didn't want to be that guy. My wife Maya kept saying, "Just ignore her, Daniel. Keep your head down. Don't give her a reason to notice you," which is sweet advice. Unless you're living next to someone who treats noticing you like it's her main hobby. See, gardening isn't just a thing I do, it's therapy. I sit behind a screen all day, and when I finally get outside, hands in the dirt, trimming roses, planting marigolds, adjusting a trellis, it's like my brain unclenches. Except Karen apparently couldn't stand the idea of me being at peace in my own yard. It started with this feeling of being watched, like you'd be pulling weeds and suddenly your neck gets hot. You look up and there she is, at the edge of her yard, arms folded, staring like I'm burying evidence instead of planting tulips. And she had this voice, this syrupy, fake sweet voice people use when they're trying to hide venom under manners. Lovely day, isn't it, Daniel? Or, those petunias are bold. Don't you think white would blend better with the neighborhood theme? Neighborhood theme, like we all signed up to live in a Pinterest board. Her suggestions turned into lectures, fertilizer ratios, watering schedules, the rustic vibe of my stepping stones, how my bird feeder encouraged undesirable wildlife. Squirrels apparently were an existential threat to Maple Ridge. I wanted to ask her what she preferred: mountain lions, bears, a moose with an HOA badge. But the staring turned into full-on snooping. One night I'm making dinner and I catch her face angled right at our kitchen window, just standing there like it's normal to watch someone saute onions from the sidewalk. Another morning, trash day, I look outside and she's lifting lids on my trash cans, inspecting bags like she's running a forensic lab. I walk out like, "Karen, what are you doing?" And she smiles, that infuriating little smile, and goes, "Just making sure you're recycling properly, Daniel." Sure you are. Then the anonymous HOA tips start showing up, slips of paper in my mailbox shoved under the door. Your garden gnome exceeds allowable height limit by 1/2 inch. Your wind chimes are disruptive to community peace. 1/2 inch? Like my gnome was out here threatening public safety. I tried to set boundaries the normal way. Polite conversation hedges for privacy. A simple no. Trespassing sign. She called the sign unneighborly. And then I caught her on a stepladder with binoculars peeking over my new hedges like a deranged wildlife photographer tracking an endangered species. The man who planted purple flowers? And then Maya's birthday happened. I'd planned it for weeks, just a small backyard thing. Close friends, family, fairy lights strung up the grill, going music playing, and a cake I'd ordered from her favorite bakery downtown. The good stuff. The kind of cake you don't just buy on a whim. The sun was dropping low. That warm, golden hour light was making everything look peaceful for once. Maya was smiling. Friends were laughing. And I remember thinking, finally, we're okay. We're building something here. Then right as I carry the cake out, candles lit, everyone ready to sing, our gate bangs open. Surprise. Karen's voice cuts through the air like a car alarm. Everything stops, music, conversation, the mood, like somebody hit mute on the whole backyard. And Karen strolls in like she owns the place, smiling, like the Grinch in yoga pants. I'm standing there holding a birthday cake like an idiot, trying to keep my blood pressure from launching into space. What are you doing here? I ask, and my voice is calmer than I felt. She goes, oh, I just noticed all the cars parked outside. Thought I'd pop in, make sure everything's in order, noise levels, trash disposal, you know. She walks straight to the food table and sniffs like she's checking for contraband. Too much sugar, she mutters, and then she eyes the decorations. A little colorful, don't you think? And then she scans the guests like she's running background checks in her head. I look over at Maya and her face. Man, I'll never forget it. This mix of anger and embarrassment, like her birthday got yanked out from under her. People started leaving early, awkward excuses, polite goodbyes. The party died right there in the grass. That night, Maya looks at me and says, quiet but firm, enough. Daniel, she's not just annoying. She's invading our lives. And she was right. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything, the notes, the binoculars, the trash inspection, her barging into our backyard like she was entitled to our private moments. It felt like being hunted. But the predator was a middle-aged woman with a clipboard and delusions of authority. And that's when something in me snapped. Not like rage, not like I'm going to scream at her in the street, more like clarity. I realized I'd been playing defense the whole time, trying to be polite, trying to keep the peace, and all it did was teach her I'd tolerate anything. So I thought, okay, if Karen wants to lurk, if she wants to hover at my fence line, if she wants to invade my space like she's entitled to it, then fine. She can have a front row seat, a very wet front row seat. Because the line I was going to draw wasn't with shouting. It wasn't with fists. It was with water. Cold, unexpected, perfectly timed water. The next morning at dawn, I called my buddy Marcus. Marcus is one of those guys who lives for DIY projects. Half his garage is tools, spare lumber, random gadgets he's going to use someday, and he always sounds happiest when you tell him I need to build something ridiculous. I explain the situation and he just starts laughing, like the kind of laugh that says, oh yeah, this is going to be fun. He goes, Daniel, have been waiting my whole life for a project like this. Let's give her the shower she deserves. So we planned it like two idiots preparing for war over pizza and a couple beers sketching sprinkler zones on napkins like we were designing a military operation. The idea wasn't to water grass, it was to protect the choke points. My flower beds, my gate, the spot by the trash cans where she'd like to audit my recycling, the porch area where she'd lurk near windows. I researched online, like a man-possessed multi-zone systems, rotor heads with adjustable spray patterns, high-pressure nozzles that could blast 20 feet. And then I found the holy grail infrared motion detection, sensitive enough to trigger the second someone crossed into the wrong place. I wasn't installing sprinklers, I was building a defensive perimeter. But before I committed, I wanted proof, real proof of how far Karen was willing to go. Because part of me still wanted to believe maybe she was just socially clueless. So one evening I set a small box on my porch labeled fertilizer samples inside, was nothing but shredded paper, and aimed a camera at it. At exactly 10 o'clock at night, Karen crept across my lawn like a burglar, picked up the box, opened it, frowned, and scurried off into the dark like a raccoon caught stealing chips. That was it, no more benefit of the doubt. Saturday morning, Marcus shows up with his truck and we start digging trenches, laying PVC, adjusting nozzle angles. Neighbors slowed their cars to watch, pretending not to be curious, but you could tell they knew something was brewing. Marcus accidentally triggered a prototype and drenched himself, standing there dripping like a sad golden retriever. He goes, consider it a baptism, wringing out his shirt. By sundown, the system was in sensors, armed zones, calibrated arcs, tested every spray pattern, tuned like an instrument in an orchestra of petty justice. That night I laid in bed smiling like a cartoon villain, and I'm not proud of that. But I'm not ashamed either, because Karen didn't make me wait long. Tuesday afternoon, I'm working from home and I hear a shriek outside, high-pitched, sharp, the kind of sound that makes you spill your coffee if you're not careful. I pull back the blinds and there she is, Karen standing in my flower bed, white pantsuit plastered to her legs, hair dripping mascara, running like she just lost a breakup fight with a waterfall. The sprinkler hisses and blasts again right across her torso, perfectly timed, like it had personal beef. I step out and put on my best fake concern. Oh no, Karen, did you get wet? Her glare could have melted steel. You did this on purpose. On purpose, I tilt my head like I'm confused. Why would I'm just keeping the lawn green community standards, you know? She sputters something about water waste and inconsiderate neighbors and storms off, leaving soggy footprints like a trail of humiliation. I close the door and laugh so hard I have to grab the counter. For the first time in months, the power shifted, and then it turned into a full-on comedy series. She goes to inspect my trash can's jet of water straight to the chest. She leans over the hedge with binoculars, spray arcs up like a perfect little slap. She creeps toward the kitchen window. Porch rotor head sends a cascade onto her hair like a shampoo commercial from hell. The best part, she brought an ally. Evelyn Hayes, another HOA loyalist. The kind of woman who can quote bylaws from memory and once yelled at kids for riding scooters too fast. They march onto my lawn like suburban stormtroopers with clipboards, and both of them get absolutely baptized. Evelyn's wig shifts sideways like seaweed. Karen flails like she's fighting Poseidon. I saved the camera footage, yeah, I did. And yes, I replayed it at night, like a man watching his favorite sitcom. Then Karen tried sabotaging tape over sensors. Sprinkler heads twisted my water main, mysteriously shut off once. So I got smarter protective covers, extra cameras tucked into hedges, pressure monitor in the garage. If she wanted to play dirty, fine. I'd play documented. Eventually, it escalated to the HOA board meeting. Same beige community center, flickering fluorescent lights that hum in the air like the building itself hates being there. Karen's at the front with stacks of paper like she's prosecuting a war crime. She slams down a photo of herself soaked and says dramatically, "This is what I've endured. Daniel Miller's sprinkler system is a menace. Weapons of aquatic aggression." Somebody in the back laughs quickly, stifles it. I step up with my folder and go calm as I can. "They're sprinklers, Karen. They're on my property. There is no bylaw against motion-activated irrigation. And if anyone keeps getting wet, it's probably because they keep ending up somewhere they don't belong." That's when the twist hit, because a quiet older guy stands up from the crowd, clears his throat, adjusts his glasses. George Lang, retired attorney, lived 3 houses down, barely spoke at meetings. The kind of man who looks like he's been holding back wisdom for decades because nobody asked. He goes, "Karen, if Mr. Miller's sprinklers are on his property, that's his right. If you are repeatedly entering that property, that raises other issues, trespassing, harassment." And Karen, for once, didn't have a comeback. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. Then Evelyn, of all people, mutters, "Honestly, his lawn looks amazing. Maybe we should be thanking him." I swear Karen looked like she'd been betrayed by her own army. The board basically shrugged, no rule broken, no fine. Karen storms out, muttering about lawsuits and water terrorism like she's auditioning for a reality show. But here's the thing, when someone like Karen loses publicly, they don't get reflective. They get desperate. So she started showing up in a neon raincoat in 90-degree heat, marching onto the sidewalk with a massive umbrella like a medieval shield. My sprinklers flip it inside out on cue, and neighbors choke on laughter behind coffee mugs. She tried stealth crawling across my yard at night, flashlight in her teeth like she's doing Navy SEAL training. Sensor catches her blast to the face. She scrambles back like a wet gremlin. Kids started whispering Karen watch like it was a sport. Neighbors would walk their dogs suspiciously slow past my house waiting for the next episode. Even the mailman goes dead serious. Best entertainment I've had on this road in 20 years. My yard thrived, thick green golf course grass. Rose's glowing maple ridge started complimenting me in hushed tones like it was illegal to praise a man publicly. And the more the neighborhood laughed, the more Karen withered inside. Then she snapped for real. One bright Saturday afternoon, I'm pruning roses, the air hot and still cicadas buzzing like static. And Karen storms up, holding a shovel, eyes wild, face twisted. "This ends today," she screams loud enough the cul-de-sac goes quiet. She charges into my flower bed and starts hacking at the soil like she's digging up buried treasure. Maya runs out, yelling, "Karen, stop!" Neighbors step onto porch's phones already halfway up because at this point we all know drama when we see it. And Karen, in a rage, forgets the most important fact. My motion sensors are still armed. The first sprinkler pops up and blasts her side. She staggers, keeps digging. Second zone triggers, hits her from behind. She spins, trips another sensor, and suddenly everything goes off. Every sprinkler head erupts like a synchronized attack, jets from all directions, hissing and clicking, water arcing in the sunlight like a chaotic ballet. Karen flails. Shovel clatters, umbrella forgotten. She slips and lands in the mud with a wet, humiliating splat that you could hear from the sidewalk. Kids cheer, adults laugh, somebody whispers, "Oh my God." Then the random soak mode kicks in, unpredictable bursts that keep catching her as she tries to stand. And for this one ridiculous moment, a rainbow shimmers through the spray like the universe is adding special effects just to clown her. It was slapstick, But it also felt like karma had finally clocked in for its shift. Karen finally staggers off my lawn, silent this time, dripping and muddy, leaving a trail of footprints like a defeated villain retreating to her lair. And then this is my favorite part. The whole block starts clapping. Not polite golf claps. Actual clapping, like a crowd after a performance. Because for years, Karen had gotten away with it, bullying people with rules, snooping, threatening, making everyone feel small. And now the mask was gone. That night, Marcus sends me a stitched video compilation from everyone's phones with dramatic music. He titled it "The Day Karen Fell." I watched it 3 times and laughed until my ribs hurt. But when the laughter faded, something else settled in this quiet realization that made my stomach drop a little. Because it wasn't really about sprinklers, was it? It was about boundaries. And how the world is full of people who will take and take and take until you finally make it uncomfortable for them. Karen wasn't protecting standards. She was feeding on control. She needed to feel powerful, needed to feel like she could walk into other people's lives and rearrange them. And the truth is, most folks let it happen not because they agree, but because conflict is exhausting. And I learned something kind of bitter sometimes. Being nice isn't kindness. Sometimes it's just permission. A month later, word spread Karen resigned from the HOA board, sold her house at a loss, moved out under cover of night like even she knew the daylight belonged to everyone else now. Rumor was she moved into a condo complex with no lawns, no gardens, and hopefully no sprinklers. Maple Ridge actually got softer. After that, the HOA eased up. Neighbors started planting brighter flowers, throwing parties without fear of surprise inspections. People acted less like prisoners and more like neighbors. My sprinklers stayed every head and sensor because honestly, they weren't just irrigation anymore. They were a reminder that my home is my home and nobody gets to cross that line just because they're loud and official. A couple who moved into Karen's old place stopped by one evening, nice young couple smiling, holding a welcome basket like normal humans. The husband points at my yard and goes, "Hey, why so many sprinklers? Did the previous owner have some kind of water obsession?" I just laughed and said, "Not exactly, let's call it an HOA misunderstanding." His wife raises an eyebrow. "What kind of misunderstanding?" I clip a rose and go, "The kind that ends with raincoats, bolt cutters, and a lot of mud." They blink confused, then smile anyway. "Welcome to the neighborhood," I tell them. "It's quieter now, trust me." And it is. So here's the question that still messes with me, and I'm genuinely curious what you think. When someone keeps crossing the line, when they keep poking and prodding and invading your space, how far is too far when you finally push back? Because sure, I use sprinklers. Harmless, hilarious, watery justice. But if Karen had kept escalating, would the right response still be funny, or does it eventually become something else? Drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from, what time it is there, and most importantly, was I wrong or was that just karma doing what karma does? And if you've ever had an HOA or a neighbor from hell, I want to hear your story too, because I know I'm not the only one who's had to defend their peace, one ridiculous inch at a time.